And I know it's going to cause a lot of trouble, but the real reason I left Sanford Son because those lousy bastards over there, they took and made me no kind of money, no money at all.
Red Fox was famous for faking heart attacks. He'd grab his chest and cry out to his late wife, Elizabeth, making millions of people laugh. But on October 11th, 1991, the man who perfected the fake one had a real one. And in his final moments, he was surrounded by people who showed him nothing but disrespect. What could make America's favorite junkman so angry? The answer is a story of betrayal, greed, and a lifelong fight that finally reveals who he hated the most. The war over money.
Elizabeth, if you're looking down on all this, honey, don't look.
Before Red Fox ever had a problem with another actor, his biggest enemies were the men who signed his checks. They were the producers and the network bosses who saw him as a product, not a person. His entire time on the show that made him a legend, Sanford and Son, was a war. It was a war fought on two fronts, one for money and one for his voice. When Sanford and Son hit the air in 1972, it was an instant smash hit for the NBC network. The show was so popular that it landed in the top 10 for almost all of its 6 seasons. Many said that Red Fox single-handedly saved NBC in the ratings. He was the star, the reason millions tuned in every week. But behind the scenes, he was being paid with what he called a substandard contract. He was earning $19,000 for each episode. At the same time, another hugely popular show, All in the Family, was also on the air. Its star, Carol O'Connor, was making a fortune. Both shows were made by the same production company, Tandem Productions, run by producers Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin. Fox saw that he was just as big a star as O'Connor, bringing in just as many viewers, but he wasn't being paid like it. By the show's 3rd season in 1973, Fox had enough. He knew his worth, and he made his demands clear. He wanted his salary raised to $25,000 per episode, the exact same amount Carol O'Connor was making. But he wanted more than just a bigger paycheck. He wanted power. He demanded a 25% ownership stake in the show he had made famous. He wasn't just an actor for hire, he was the heart of the show, and he wanted his piece of it. The producers refused. So, Red Fox did the unthinkable. He walked away. In the middle of the season, he simply stopped showing up to work. He told the public it was because of health issues, but everyone in Hollywood knew the real reason. The network was thrown into chaos. They had to quickly rewrite scripts, explaining that Fred Sanford was out of town visiting family for a funeral. For 6 episodes, the star of Sanford and Son was nowhere to be seen. How did the producers at Tandem Productions respond? They didn't try to make peace. They declared war. They sued their own star, the man making them millions of dollars, for an unbelievable $10 million. It was a move meant to break him and force him back to work. But Red Fox didn't break. He knew his value to the network, and he held his ground. The legal battle raged on, but by June of 1974, the producers finally gave in. They knew they couldn't win without their star. Red Fox got everything he asked for. His pay was raised to $25,000 per episode, and he was given his 25% share of the show's profits. He had taken on the powerful men in suits and won. It was a massive victory, but the fight proved to him that to the producers, he was just a number on a balance sheet. And this battle over money was only half the story. The real fight was over something much more personal. The war over a black man's voice.
Hey, Fred, if that as loud as that TV will go, I can't hear nothing. If you want to make it louder, do like this.
Even more than the money, Red Fox fought for the soul of his show. He was a veteran comedian who came up on the Chitlin Circuit, a network of clubs for black performers. He knew what was funny, and he knew how black people really talked and lived. But on the set of Sanford and Son, he was surrounded by white writers and producers who he felt had no understanding of black culture. He was constantly in clashes with them over the scripts. He would read lines and say, "This is not how black people talk." One of the show's writers, a man named Ted Bergman, remembered a perfect example of this fight. Bergman wrote a scene where Fred Sanford was playing the board game Monopoly. The joke was that Fred said Monopoly was the only game where a black man could own railroads and utilities. When Red saw the script, he shut it down immediately. He looked at the writer and said flatly, "Black people don't play Monopoly." The entire scene had to be rewritten. This happened all the time. Foxx felt like he had to be a watchdog, protecting his character and his culture from people who didn't get it. He felt that the producers didn't respect his knowledge or his comedic genius. They just wanted him to say their lines and get their laughs. This constant creative battle was exhausting. He felt he was being used. This feeling of disrespect in the writer's room is what fueled his demands for more money and more control. If the producers wouldn't respect his voice, he would force them to respect his value. The fights over the scripts and the fights over his contract were not separate issues. They were part of the same long, bitter war for respect. Red won his war against the producers, getting the money and the control he deserved. But the victory came at a terrible price. The battles left scars, and the deepest one was on his relationship with the person who should have been his closest ally, his on-screen son. The way he treated him revealed a different side of Red Foxx, and it was a side that could never be forgiven. On screen, Fred and Lamont Sanford were one of the most beloved father-son duos in television history. Their chemistry was real, and audiences could feel the genuine affection between Red Foxx and the actor who played his son, Demond Wilson. But behind the scenes, Red's war with the producers would lead to a personal betrayal that destroyed their friendship forever. The ultimate betrayal.
Would you see who that is, Pop? I sure would appreciate it, Pop. Thank you very much, Pop. Now there's 3 Pops, okay, Pop?
By 1977, after 6 seasons, Red Foxx was ready to move on. He had been fighting with NBC and the producers for years. A rival network, ABC, came to him with a massive offer to host his own variety show, the Red Fox Comedy Hour. It was a huge opportunity and a lot of money, and Fox took the deal. Sanford and Son was over. But the way Demond Wilson found out was cold and shocking. Red Foxx, the man who played his father for 6 years, never told him he was leaving. There was no phone call, no private conversation, no warning. Demond Wilson found out that his show was ending and his TV father was quitting from a newscaster he passed in a hallway at the NBC studios. The news was a complete blindside. Wilson was devastated. Years later, he spoke about the deep hurt that moment caused him. He said, "My hurt was that he didn't come to me about throwing the towel in. I found out in the hallway at NBC from a newscaster. I forgave him and I loved Red, but I never forgot that." To Red, leaving the show was just another business move in his long war with the network. He was focused on his own career and his own battles. But to Wilson, their relationship was more than a business. They were a TV family, a partnership. He expected the loyalty of a father telling his son about a huge life decision. Instead, he was treated like a nobody, an unimportant employee who didn't need to be told. That single moment of silence from Red shattered their bond. It proved to Wilson that when it came down to it, Red Foxx was only looking out for himself. The final icy meeting.
Is it a tight feeling across the chest?
Yes,
Pain in the back and left shoulder?
yes,
Little dizziness, kind of sick to your stomach?
yes.
After Red left, their relationship was over. NBC tried to keep the magic alive by creating a new show called Sanford Arms, centered on the other characters, but Demond Wilson soon quit that show over his own salary dispute. A few years later, in 1980, Fox tried to bring back his famous character in a new series just called Sanford. He wanted Wilson to return as Lamont, but Wilson refused. The trust was gone. For years, the two men did not speak. Then, around 1983, some producers had an idea for a Red Fox 50th anniversary special and approached Wilson about participating. Wilson, despite the past hurt, agreed to at least meet with his old co-star. It would be the first and only time they saw each other after the original show ended. Wilson went to Red's office for the meeting. He was hoping, perhaps, for an apology or a chance to clear the air. But that's not what happened. Wilson described the meeting as incredibly tense and unfriendly. He said that Red Fox was less than affable. The word means unfriendly, cold, and difficult. The feeling in the room was so bad that Wilson walked out and told the producers that the special was a terrible idea. That was it. The damage was permanent. Red's coldness at that final meeting showed that he either felt no need to apologize or simply didn't care about the pain he had caused. For Wilson, it was the final confirmation that the man he once loved working with was gone. They never spoke a word to each other again. The relationship with his on-screen son was a casualty of Red's long war with Hollywood. But that war was far from over. Years later, at 68, he was given one last chance at a comeback. He thought it would be his triumphant return. Instead, he walked right into a final fatal act of disrespect that would cost him his life. By 1991, Red Fox was 68 years old and in deep trouble. After years of lavish living and bad business deals, he was fighting a losing battle with the IRS. They had filed liens against his property for hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid taxes. By the time of his death, he owed the government over $3 million. He was broke. His big chance to turn things around was a new TV show called The Royal Family. He was co-starring with his dear lifelong friend, the singer and actress Della Reese. It was supposed to be his great comeback. Instead, it became the site of his final tragic battle. The producer who could teach him to be funny.
Hello, Fred. Hello, Woody. Goodbye, Woody.
On the set of The Royal Family, Red found himself in a familiar situation. He was once again dealing with a producer who he felt was disrespecting him. According to Della Reese, there was one producer in particular who constantly got under Red's skin. This producer had the incredible arrogance to tell Red Fox, a comedy legend, that he could teach him how to be funny. Reese said there was a constant friction between them. The producer would approach Red with an attitude of, "I'm one of the producers, and I can tell you how to be funny." For Red, it was the same fight he had been having his whole career. It was another man in a suit trying to tell him what to do, treating him like he didn't know his own craft. The tension on set was building every day. October 11th, 1991 was the day it all exploded. The cast was on set for rehearsals. Red was not needed for the scene they were working on, so he was sitting down for a very important interview with a reporter from the show Entertainment Tonight. He was finally getting the chance to promote his big comeback. Suddenly, the disrespectful producer stormed onto the set. He interrupted the interview and physically grabbed Red, pulling him away. The producer insisted that Red had to be there for the rehearsal. But here is the absurd and tragic truth. Red had no lines in the scene. He had no real part at all. His only action was to walk behind a chair. He was dragged away from a major press interview to perform a pointless action that a stand-in could have easily done. It was a pure power move, a final humiliating show of authority from the producer. Della Reese, who watched it all happen, said Red was visibly livid. He was filled with a rage that had been building for decades. He angrily did what the producer demanded. He walked across the set. Then he grabbed a nearby chair and collapsed to the floor. For a few moments, nobody moved. The cast and crew just stared. They thought he was joking. They thought he was doing his most famous routine, the Fred Sanford fake heart attack. It was the ultimate tragic irony. The one thing that made him a comedy icon was now contributing to his death. But Della Reese knew her friend. When he didn't get up, she rushed to his side and knelt down beside him. She heard him whisper his last words. He didn't say a joke. He didn't cry out for Elizabeth. He said, "Get my wife." He said it twice. Reese screamed for help. Paramedics were called, and Red was rushed to the hospital. About 4 hours later, he was pronounced dead. The coldest words ever spoken.
Hawaiian music. Oh, it's the Lord.
The story should end there with a tragic death on a Hollywood set. But what happened next is what truly reveals the cold heart of the business Red Foxx fought against his whole life. Della Reese was at the hospital with Red's wife when the doctor came out to tell them that he was gone. Also at the hospital were two of the producers from the royal family. As soon as they heard the news that their star was dead, their reaction was not one of sadness or shock. It was one of business. According to Reese, one of the producers turned to the other and asked, "Now who is going to get to do Fox's lines?" The other producer added, "What are we going to do with this script?" Della Reese was in disbelief. In the moments after her dear friend's wife had just learned her husband was dead, these men were only worried about their TV show. She said she blew up at them, screaming at their unbelievable cruelty. She stormed out of the hospital, vowing she would never work on a show like that again. Those final cold words from the producers were the proof of everything Red Foxx had been fighting against. To them, he was never a person. He was never a comedy legend or a trailblazer. He was a piece of a puzzle, a name on a script. His death was not a tragedy. It was a scheduling problem. Red Foxx died because he was pushed too far by the very disrespect he had spent his life fighting. With all these battles, it would be easy to think Red Foxx was just an angry man who hated everyone. But that's not the truth. To understand who he hated, you have to see who he loved. His anger was aimed at a system, at the men in suits who held all the power. But for his fellow actors and friends, he was a fierce and loyal ally. Aunt Esther, his childhood friend.
Goodbye, dear.
Oh, you call me dear?
Why should I call you dear? You look like Bambi's father.
On Sanford and son, Fred Sanford's greatest enemy was his sister-in-law, the church-going, purse-swinging Aunt Esther. But in real life, the actress who played her, LaWanda Page, was one of Red's oldest and dearest friends. They had known each other since they were kids and had performed together for years on the Chitlin circuit. When it came time to cast the role of Aunt Esther, Red knew he wanted LaWanda for the part. But the show's producers were against it. They didn't want to hire her. Red, who had just won his long battle for more power on the show, used that power for his friend. He gave the producers an ultimatum. He told them, "If LaWanda Page is not hired, I am no longer available." He was willing to walk away from his own hit show for his friend. The producers had no choice but to agree. Red Foxx didn't just fight for himself. He fought to lift up the people he came up with. Della, his fiercest defender.
They never did treat him with the respect that he should have had.
Red's friendship with Della Reese was just as deep. They had known each other for decades, long before they worked together on the royal family. Della once described their bond by saying, "We were hungry together. We were out of work together. We shared sandwiches together. We were friends." That powerful friendship was on full display on the day he died. She was the one who knew something was wrong when others thought he was joking. She was the one who knelt by his side and heard his last words. And she was the one who stood up to the heartless producers at the hospital, defending his memory and his humanity when they would not. She never let anyone forget that they had treated him with disrespect, right up to his final breath. Behind the famous smile and the fake heart attacks was a man who spent his entire life in a real fight. Red Foxx fought the producers for fair pay. He fought the writers for an authentic voice. And in the end, on the set of his last show, he fought for his own dignity. At 68 years old, Red Foxx didn't need to say a word to finally reveal who he hated the most. His entire life and his tragic death was the final heartbreaking answer